How much caffeine do you have?
Rarely. On days that I work, I drink about 1 cup of coffee, and that's it.
Oh, like 8 ounces?
Yeah. Might be 10.
Okay.
8 to 10.
That's about what I drink. It's a healthy amount.
Yeah, that's it, because I don't need any more. I just need a little bit of get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Or like today after a workout, hard workout.
Yeah, what kind of workouts do you do?
Football. Or just go to the gym and just do traditional strength cardio, training and cardio. It's nothing formal.
Okay.
But yeah.
Now, we are recording, just so you know.
Perfect.
Yeah, I just wanted to ease right into it. So tell me about yourself. You mentioned football, so let's go with that first.
Perfect.
But first, tell me about you. Are you from Lansing?
No, but both of my parents are DeWitt graduates. Born, raised DeWitt, graduated in 73, I believe. My dad was recruited by Bo Schembechler years and years ago. Most people should know that name.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, couldn't fulfill that commitment because he got an injury that prevented him from playing football his senior year. But he's gone into ministry. He's been in ministry since 1977, so 45 years, faithfully at it. Phenomenal man. He and my mom are the reason, and my wife are really kind of the people that are the reason I'm where I am today. He's a great dude. So that's so he grew up in DeWitt, but he took a ministry position. He ended up being the dean of men and dean of Bible at Christian College for 30 years down in Northwest Indiana. And it was just a small Christian college, just for mainly just ministry purposes. We didn't have more than 300-400 students at a time. Wasn't huge. So I grew up. It was part of a church of about 700-800 in Northwest Indiana. It had a Christian school of about 150-200, and they were too small to ever play football for me, or for our school. And it was always a first love of mine. I mean, when we were growing up, I have an older brother, and we'd go drop mom off on Friday nights at the mall. We'd be out in the parking lot running routes against each other, or we'd go to a football game and then get on the field afterwards like it was a big deal. And when a couple times growing up that we'd get a chance to go to a Michigan football game, because we're huge Michigan fans. Back then they had grass fields with painted on. We'd go to we'd get on the field, and back then they used to let you on the field about an hour after the game when all the players are out, coaches are out. They'd let you on the field. You get on there, there'd probably be 100 kids out there with their dads throwing the football around. The last thing we always did was I'd say, "Dad, throw me a diver in the end zone," right? Because they had that blue-yellow paint, and I'd go dive. I didn't care about catching the ball, just dive on the paint, get it on my jeans, and then going to school on Monday, showing them all. Because my mom would be like, "I'll throw those in the wash," and I'd be like, "Nope, I don't wear them to school on Monday," because I had that maize and blue paint on them, and show it off a little bit. So football was always a first love of mine. I wrestled, played soccer, played college, or played basketball all the way through high school, and then I got into college, played a little bit of college basketball, again at that Christian college. It wasn't anything super cool. It wasn't anything like Michigan or a Big Ten school or something like that. But I always wanted to play football. So when I got out of there, I married my wife. My dad had retired, moved back to DeWitt by then. And so I just followed. It was a natural progression. My entire family was here. Convinced my wife to move up, marry me. And we were at somebody was throwing up a big, open to the public, a big October. It was in October, big just fun day for families. And we ended up going there, playing football. And one guy happened to mention, there's a semi-pro football team in town. And, they're, let anybody come play. This is back in 2011, 12-ish. So I looked them up, and I was like, this is my opportunity to go play football. So I did in 2012. Got a chance to do that. We came within 4 points of winning a conference championship.
Wow.
Had 4th and goal from the 4-yard line. Couldn't punch it in, so unfortunately.
Where do they play at?
So now we play. Last year we played at Rosedale Park in Lansing. The year before that we played at Hope Sports Complex. This year we're trying to get to either Lansing Eastern or Lansing Everett. If we can't get, we're having a little bit of tough time dealing with the schools, communicating with them and getting answers back from them. But if we can't play there, we'll end up probably playing at Mac Goebel Field in Charlotte, which is the Junior Orioles field. It's a really nice facility, really nice field. So we'll end up playing our home games there if we can't get Lansing Eastern, Lansing Everett on the docket. But so that was 2012. Had a blast doing that. It was a great time. I ended up being the starting middle linebacker. Loved it. And then I ended up starting a business in finance, which if anybody that's ever done that, takes a lot of commitment in the first 4, 5, 6 years. So I had to put a lot of that to rest, and really had no life outside of building a business for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then a buddy of mine, a friend of mine who I worked with, came up to me and said about 3 years ago and said, "Hey, I'm going to pick it back up again, or I'm going to go try," because he didn't play in high school and he always regretted that. He's like, "I just want to play one more year." So I was like, that was the motivation I needed to get back at it. So about 3 years ago, I started training again, getting back in shape, and ended up going back out. And my first season playing again was 2020. We had a shortened season due to COVID, but we ended up going undefeated. And I started at tight end and inside linebacker. We ended up going to undefeated. Won our conference championship. I should have brought the ring, but we got a big old, really cool ring out of it. That's and ended up going to Florida to play for a national championship in February of last year, kind of like a bowl game type scenario. And got our tails handed to us. So last year we played again. We had a little bit of a split on our team, so we started our own Lansing Lightning. I helped kind of start and organize a new team. And last year we didn't go undefeated, but we were in the conference championship game, lost by 4 points again.
Wow.
But it had a blast doing it, and it's a lot of fun. And if you don't know what semi-pro is, it's basically 7th and 8th grade playbook at a high school kind of level, played by a bunch of guys that are 18 to 48. So it's a little bit more than it's kind of like organized, glorified pickup. And it's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. We get a wide range of teams, from guys that are just like, they just show up to games and just do it for fun. And you got guys or teams that they're disciplined and really on point, and they're the ones that have the most success. But it's competitive, and it gets really fun out there. It can get really chippy.
I can imagine.
A little bit of smack talking, maybe a lot of smack talking. But our goal is to represent Lansing well, and we've got a good young group of guys. Last year, our starting quarterback, or our backup quarterback, who ended up becoming our starter, was a 47-year-old quarterback.
Wow. This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth.
Police officer, so he's in great shape, but he was putting Tom Brady to shame. Not quite, but we give him a little bit of a hard time for that. But it's a lot of these guys are like 18 to 26, and in a way, I kind of see it also as a little bit of a ministry, because a lot of these kids, they need football more than football needs them.
Yeah.
It gives them something to do, something to focus on, something to be proud of. Because a lot of these guys grew up without dads, grew up without, from broken homes. It's a second opportunity. They didn't maybe get a scholarship out of high school. Some of them should have or could have. Yeah. But a life circumstance or a personal issue kept the grades, or something else kept them from doing it. So they get another chance at it. We had Olivet College at our games, a few of our games last year, scouting us, and I think a couple guys got offers or conversations with people. We have one guy that ended up playing for an arena team, the Western Michigan Ironmen, I think it is. Got paid a little bit. He's very good, very talented, very humble kid. Great kid, deserves a shot at some of that type of stuff. So a lot of these kids and a lot of these guys, I love to, just be around them. They're great guys. They deserve opportunities. Yeah. And so we do our best to give it to them. And we have a blast playing football together. Some of these guys I would never have met otherwise. And I hope that one of my hopes is that I can be a good influence on them, be there for them. I'm kind of giving some pointers to one of our guys who's starting a business in the restaurant industry.
Oh, cool.
So trying to help him there. and he's got a lot of great ideas. Just needs a little bit of encouragement, so to speak.
A little guidance.
Really, a lot of these guys just need somebody to just encourage them, and to go after life and go after their passions and dreams. So,
yeah, I mean, as long as you work hard, right, and you believe in yourself, anything's possible. Like, you may even fail, but it's not a complete failure if you learn something.
Correct. So, correct. And I used to be so afraid of failure.
Yeah, me too.
I hate failing, and I still hate failing. It's taken a lot to change my mind, so to speak, on failing and not getting things done right or well.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to teach my daughter, who's 7, that it's okay to lose and it's okay to fail. I have a really good friend of mine, Brock. He has a great quote. He said, "I either win or I learn. The only failure is to not win from a failure, or to not learn from a failure." So either you win or you learn. What can you take away and improve out of that failure? And then it's not a failure. The only failure is to just leave it alone and not change anything and go on without correcting any issues that you need to correct. So I think that's really an important lesson. So, how do we bounce back from struggles is really the key to that.
Yeah.
You got to have what I call Rocky Balboa syndrome.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many times you get punched, you got to get back off the mat.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like that with everything. By the way, I should say, you should start a podcast. You're really good at talking.
I appreciate that.
I haven't said anything yet.
Well, if there's one thing people know about me, I can talk. I enjoy talking.
Yeah, I think you'd have a really good podcast.
Well, I used to, through our business before COVID, we were doing something similar with business owners, just having them in, because I'm the vice president of business planning at my firm, Castle Financial Partners, and we were trying to focus business spotlight on people about once a month, but COVID came and we obviously couldn't do much of that. So
yeah, it made everything difficult. I mean, unless you wanted to do it online, right? Like a Zoom or something.
Yeah, and nobody wants to jump on one more Zoom.
No. Although I do have people who are like, "Can we do it over Zoom?" And I'm like, "Do we have to? I'd rather do it in person. I'd rather sit across from you and have a discussion and see your face, like shake your hand."
Agreed.
Meet you, get a better vibe.
I totally agree. There's 83% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So you can get some of that off of Zoom, but not all of it.
Yeah. Like, I can see when you're uncomfortable, or if I'd said something that might have triggered you, like it made you angry, or you might not have liked something I said. I can see it in your face muscles. I can see if you're judging me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't really see that on Zoom. There's a lens in between. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I usually have a virtual background, so might color wash some of that out a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so aside from the semi-pro football, which is very cool that you're doing that. Well, first I want to ask, do you guys get a pretty big audience? Do you have a pretty large crowd that comes and watches the games?
It depends on your definition of large. Last year, I think we had on average for home games about 200, maybe 250.
Okay. Well, that's pretty big.
Yeah. But it's semi-pro is kind of one of those, it's kind of like the underground back in the day, right? Unless you're in it, unless you're involved in it or know somebody that's directly involved in it, you know nothing about it. As a great point, 2 summers ago, we were playing at a field in Detroit, and I was going to walk to, there was 2 teams playing before us. I was going to walk to the restroom, and a gentleman pulled me aside and said, "Hey, what is going on here? What's this football I see?" I'm like, "Oh, this is semi-pro football. Have you ever heard of it?" He goes, "No, I've never heard of it." He was the head coach of Detroit Cass Technical High School football team.
Wow.
Which, for those that don't know, is a premier football school in not only Detroit, but in the state of Michigan. They send talent to Division I schools all the time.
Yeah.
And he had no clue about semi-pro football in Michigan.
Wow.
There's probably 20 to 30 teams in the state of Michigan alone.
Wow. That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Why is it so unknown?
Because unless you're involved, we don't get TV promotion. We do it for the love of the game and the love of the brotherhood in the sport. Right?
But it almost seems like people should be picking people up from like like high school, people who maybe wouldn't make it to college and on a scholarship.
We
right?
do.
Yeah.
We've got some, if people are plugged into like the Lansing area, you would know some of the names that we have on our team from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Wow.
We have 2 years ago, I played with a young man by the name of Malik, who took Sexton or Everett to the state championship game, I believe it was, or at least deep into the playoffs.
Wow.
And if you know him, now he's playing semi-pro football.
Wow.
That's
so crazy.
we've got some big boys that are, athletic tackles, that are well known would be well known in the Lansing inner city type schools. A couple from East Lansing, Waverly. As a matter of fact, our head coach for our team is one of the coaches for East Lansing high school football.
Oh wow.
He's petitioning or interviewing for the Waverly head high school football coach job.
Wow.
So
is that something you get paid for?
No,
you just do it for the sheer love of it.
As a matter of fact, we have to pay to play. So we have a player fee that covers, because again, we're not super popular. So we try to get some sponsorships, raise some money that way.
Local
sponsorships, etc. Restaurants, T-shirt places, graphic places, just try to get some sponsorships, get some name out there to cover some of the costs. And then we charge a player fee, and then players also have to outfit themselves with their own equipment, helmet, shoulder pads, cleats, anything else that you want.
That's got to be expensive.
It can get expensive. I mean, most of them you can. So when I picked it back up again a few years ago, I spent, I think, $400, $500 on equipment just to have it. But then once you have it, you have most of it until your cleats fall out from underneath you, or your gloves. I have to get a new pair of gloves every season because they lose their stickiness.
Right.
But no, it's a blast. And like I said, we do it for the love of the game. It's just, our assistant football coach he says football is like cocaine. It's hard to quit it. And he's right, because I'm in my mid-30s now. Yeah, I can't keep playing inside linebacker forever.
Yeah,
and tight end's a little easier, but at some point I'm gonna have to. My body's just not gonna be able to do it, and
have to pick up the cocaine.
Yeah, I have to put the cocaine away, and so I just but I can already tell. Like I've told my wife, this is probably my last year.
You probably say that every year, don't you?
No, I have not said that every year. Trying not to pull a Brett Favre here. Trying to be smart about it. But every practice I go to, I just have a blast. It's a great stress reliever. It's a great way to exercise. Like, I enjoy 3 hours of practice. Very few humans enjoy 3 hours at the gym.
Yeah.
Right? But I burn, if we have pads on, and we're going full tilt most of the practice, I burn 2,500, 3,000 calories in a practice.
I believe it. I believe that.
Why? Where else am I? I'm not going to come close to that in a gym and have that much fun doing it.
No, absolutely not.
There and if you play it on a sports team ever, there's that locker room brotherhood.
Yeah.
I missed that in college when I played in college, and when I picked it back up again, I told my wife, I was like, I came for the football. I'm staying for the brotherhood. Like, there's a lot of these, like, I'd do a lot of things for some of these guys that I wouldn't do for my own family.
It's kind of interesting too, because a lot of you guys come from different backgrounds and different economical backgrounds, everything. We are a very, very, but the game
diverse,
unites you.
Correct. We're very diverse. Matter of fact, I'm in the minority as a white guy. I'm in the minority there. But it's a blast. Like, we have guys that are professionals. We have guys that are, came from, we have a young man on our team that lost both his mom and his dad at an early age.
Wow.
But he's actually doing really well for himself, all things considered. So there's a lot of these kids that I call them kids because they're mostly 18 to 26.
Yeah.
I think I'm like the third oldest guy in the team.
How old are you? You said you're in your 30s.
I'm 34. I'll be 35 in August.
Okay.
So it's a blast. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I would do for these guys that I wouldn't do for my own, some people in my own family even.
Yeah.
But I've loaned some of these, or not loaned, I've just given some of these guys money because they were hard on times. I supported some of their businesses, trying to help them get started. But there's just, like you said, there's the game is what brings us together. And I wish society would find ways to do more of this kind of thing. It'd be great.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age with the divide in politics, and we always get so wrapped up in ideologies, and then we let that separate us from us as individuals.
Yeah, which if you don't mind, just a friendly reminder to everybody out there that this is an election year, so they're going to intentionally divide us again.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I used to be super political, and now I can't stand it. Just because it divides. You know, all these memes. I mean, I heard about in the 2016 election, there was a company that was creating memes for both the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign. And if that doesn't tell you the state of our politics, I don't know what does.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's bizarre. And it's kind of crazy, too, because even if you decide that you want to have a conversation with somebody who other people don't necessarily agree with, then you're labeled as the other. And that just creates another sense of divide for everybody.
Correct, which is their intent.
Yeah.
Which is their intent. Like, so in the business I'm in, I meet lots of very diverse people. And I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter what you believe. I'm going to still care about you. Yeah. And that's what we need to get to. Didn't intend to talk about politics today.
No,
but,
we don't need to.
You know, I hope that we understand that these memes that are being shared are come from, you know, they're come from a place of intending to divide, intending to invoke a strong emotion, to either get you to support them or hate the other, one of the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about your business. What made you start your business, and why would you want to work in the financial department?
That's a great question. My degree is in ministry. I thought I'd follow a little bit of my dad's football or in my dad's footsteps. And I just really have always enjoyed working with people. And so when I decided I wasn't going to teach anymore, I was like, well, what am I going to do? And what if I'm not going to go into ministry full time? What am I going to do?
I'm sorry, real quick. What kind of ministry did you grow up in?
So I grew up in,
or what kind of religion?
So I grew up Independent Fundamental Baptist.
Oh, okay. So did I.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
No, you're good. I talk about it all the time. So
we probably could commiserate a lot about that, but we're not here for that.
No.
The church I grew up at ended up being the subject of ABC 2020 and CNN interviews years ago. About in 20, I think it was 2011 that they did. They were very militaristic.
Yeah.
In their approach. To put it this way, I have a buddy that's in the Army and that I grew up with, one of the few guys I still talk to, and he's in the Army. He's been in for about 15 years. He's been in Afghanistan several times. He was about to go to Army or Green Beret or whatever to start that kind of training, get into that program, and they wouldn't let him in due to some medical issues. And so then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go fly helicopters." Anyhow, long story short, he said, I asked him like, "Hey, relative to the practices and things that they put us through in high school and junior high, like some of that stupid stuff that they used to do to us, how is it? What's the Army like compared to that?" He goes, "I ain't done nothing in the Army that's as hard as what we had to go through in high school."
Wow.
And so that just kind of gives you a little bit of perspective. They were very emotionally, physically, and spiritually abusive, although they never laid a hand on us themselves. It was always done through military exercises.
You went to a Christian school?
Yeah, it was part of the church. So it was an independent Baptist, school.
That was here in Michigan?
No, that was in Northwest Indiana.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's right.
And so they were very, very abusive that way. Like you could never do anything right. I'll give you
Do you mind saying the name of the school? Do you know?
I prefer not.
Yeah.
Just because I know
my brother went to a college there. Do they have a college too?
They do.
Yeah, my brother went to a college in Indiana, Northwest.
Hiles?
What's that?
Hiles Anderson?
No. It was I think Northwoods.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what it's called.
No, that wasn't ours.
Yeah, but it was pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. So, they like one of my friends, when we were in 8th grade or 9th grade, we were on a trip out east, and unfortunately, he's a typical, 8th grade knucklehead, just immature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Leaving stuff lying around, just doing some crazy, just being immature. right? It wasn't being wrong. He just was immature.
Yeah.
So they came to him. They said, hey, this is about 4 days in. They go, hey, you leave your stuff. You're responsible. You leave your stuff lying around again one more time. We're going to punish you in some sort of way. Okay. Next day, left his driver's light or his photo ID laying around somewhere, right? So somebody picked it up, turned it in. They're like, oh, well, you're irresponsible. We're going to teach you. So we had 100 people on this trip, 50 guys. They made him. We were staying at a Christian school in Maryland. They had a large gym is where the guys were staying. So they had him line up, and he had to run through a gauntlet of us guys swinging belts at him down and back.
What?
And some of my friends bragged about swinging buckle out. He had welts on his back and his legs and then they put him on a bus and sent him home because he was irresponsible and immature and couldn't handle it. One of my other friends, again, we were all 8th grade, 9th grade punk kids. We didn't know what we were doing. Just this was, for all we knew, this was normal.
Yeah.
So he was wearing sweatpants that day, so he didn't have a belt. So one of the teachers was like, oh, you don't have that? Oh, I'll give you mine, like all proud of it. And like that was the kind of thing that they did. Those are the kind of things that they ended up kind of CNN and ABC 2020 uncovered and did some specials on them. But so that kind of thing it creates a very toxic environment, creates a very emotionally abusive environment. So It was very difficult. A lot of us that, when we got into our 20s, it hit us like a ton of bricks, myself personally.
Yeah. That's I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's one thing that I struggled with when I became an adult. I moved out when I was 17 years old, but from that age till I'd say like 20, even when I had my first kid, like prior to that, I was just trying to figure life out, trying to figure out who I was, what was right and what was wrong. Because the things that my upbringing wasn't as strict as that and as crazy as that, but I'm sure in some of the same aspects, they share a lot of the same ideologies. And so like my thoughts on things and my opinions on things were all biased as to what they had taught me growing up. So when I, was on my own, I had to figure things out for myself. And it was very difficult, very confusing.
Yeah. Not only that, it was for us, it was traumatic.
Yeah. Very.
I've spent thousands of dollars on with therapists, and it was even recommended I go see a trauma therapist at one point, and followed up on that. I mean, and these people have no clue the kind of damage that they've done. Eventually that youth pastor became the pastor of the church, but he ended up, he's had to leave the church just recently. As a matter of fact, within the last few months, just due to some of the stuff that his own family ended up going through. But they prided themselves on being so tough and raising tough kids. I mean, my junior high youth pastor had his kid out doing heel toe knees on the mat and wrestling stuff at 2 years old.
Wow.
And would get after him if he wasn't doing it right. It's like 8:30 on a Sunday night, and he's just having him do a discipline. He was bragging to my wife at one point several years ago. Yeah, my kids are like 3, 5, and 7. My wife does none of the chores around the house. They do all the chores around the house. Like okay, I don't mind them doing a few, but like the laundry, the dishes, mowing the yard, like it's a little young, but they thought it was like big it was
take
like
pride in
it was like big bravado to them. Like, I'm training tough kids. And now their kids are struggling. And now their kids are, several of them were actually about a year ago caught doing stealing tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff on a trip in Florida from NASA and a few other places down there.
Gosh.
And their own kids are kind of rebelling in a way.
Yeah.
So kind of tie it all back. Like for me, when I, coming up through that, it was very, traumatic. It wasn't super bad until my dad they did a very good job of keeping stuff away. My dad was part of the college. He didn't really have anything to do with the youth stuff, so he wasn't aware of that. And they did a really good job of keeping us under wraps, of telling us like, well, what goes on with us stays here. Don't tell your parents, And we were all afraid of them, so we didn't want to say anything about it to our parents. So it didn't come out till years later, some of these things that were going on. And when my dad got wind of it, he went and had basically a come to Jesus meeting with him. This was Christmas 2006. My older brother they were torturous to him, just torturous. And here's a quick story. In 7th grade, they were on a trip out west to the Grand Canyon and climbing the Grand Canyon, doing some other fun things out there. And he had struggles with wetting the bed at night. So my mom took some, what do they call those, pull-ups or whatever for, she knew if they ever found out, it would be terrible. So she tucked him like deep in a sleeping bag so he could, wear him at night and save some embarrassment and be able to like discard them discreetly next day. Well, somehow they found out. Oh my God. They just ridiculed him all day, made him wear a pacifier around.
What?
Oh yeah. Ridiculed him to no extent. He ended up getting thrown in a dumpster and getting locked in it for a while.
What?
Yeah. Just this, for nothing that he can really control. It's just a medical thing.
Yeah.
But they're, trying to teach him to be a man, supposedly. So
wow.
My dad did not know any of that until years later. And when he found that out, he's like, we're having a come to Jesus meeting. My brother lived in California at the time, flew him back. They had a 4-hour-long conversation with the leadership, with the head pastor and the youth pastor. Head pastor didn't really know much about it. The youth pastor did, but he was trying to save his hide. He wasn't going to admit to anything.
Yeah.
So basically the end of that conversation was, we're not changing. And, how dare you? Called my dad in the next day. And my dad was like, well, maybe he's had a change of heart on some of this. He ripped my dad a new one. Like, you wouldn't believe, like, how dare you challenge authority? How dare you attack authority? This is ungodly, yada, yada, yada. My dad spent 30 years there. He's the dean of men, dean of Bible, has his PhD in theology. He had several pastors tell me he was the reason they sent their kids that wanted to be in ministry to the school.
Wow.
To get trained under him, to learn from him. And, so my dad went back he left his office, went back to his office. Like, I can't do this anymore. Walked out, went to his office again, said, I'm done. I'll finish the year, but I'm done. And, they actually said, they came back to him. Pastor had a conversation with the deacons, came back to him that Sunday and said, hey, we want you out before students come back after Christmas break. So that was like December 18th. We had to be out of our place that was the only place I had ever lived. We had a gorgeous apartment on a beautiful, nice little pond. We called it a lake, but it was a large pond, small lake, and gorgeous apartment. We had been there for 20 years, so we had to leave. In hindsight, knowing what I know now, I should never have stuck around. But at the time, it was all I knew, and I knew two things when my dad left. When my dad was going to leave, I knew they were going to do two things. I knew that they were going to try to destroy his name. And he had a great reputation amongst the people there. There's a lot of great people there. But I knew they were going to try to destroy his name, and I knew that they would. I was dating my wife, now my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and so I was like, I'm going to stick around for 2 years for her. I was a sophomore in college at the time. So, and I figured out how to. I took enough credits early, so I graduated a semester early, so I could get out of there a little bit faster. Wow. And I'll never forget, to tie this all back to kind of what we're talking about. How did I get here? I'll never forget December 19th, 2008. It was my last day there. I finished my classes. I was done. I was getting out of there. And I get in my car, and I drive. I was coming home to Michigan. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm done. I don't have to ever go back to this place. And I thought, okay, by the time I get home, I'll be able to, it'll just, all that stress, all that tension, all that pressure is now finally gone, because they made my life, forgive the expression, but they literally made my life a living hell for 2 years. The 2 years between my dad left and the time that I was still there, they tried to get me to leave without kicking me out. They were looking for reasons to kick me out. They went to my wife multiple times, told her I was a terrible guy. They went to my father-in-law, who's, not my father-in-law at the time, but they went to him multiple times, telling him I'm a terrible guy, made up lies about me, like I believe in betrothal, or had no choice in dating my daughter and dating my wife, that my dad had picked her out for me, just anything. Called me out from the pulpit a few times. One time went in the lunchroom and just blasted me about something stupid. And then the guy came and apologized to me, or didn't apologize, but came in. It's like, oh yeah, well, that wasn't that big of a deal, I guess, when he found out what actually happened on a story. That was after, didn't apologize, didn't, go tell everybody in the lunchroom that he just blasted me to, apologize, just crazy things like that. I remember thinking on December 19th, I'm like, all right, when I get home, by the time I get home, all that stress, tension, and pressure will be gone. And it wasn't. And it wasn't 6 months later. And those 6 months, that was the deepest, darkest depression. Like I barely left my house.
Wow.
And I didn't know it was depression at the time. But, a couple months into it, I'm like, something's going on. I got to figure this out. But it was a tough time of depression. But God sent a couple of people in my life, my pastor and then another ministry friend of mine, and another friend of mine that I met through a ministry that I went on, and basically recorrected and re-guided. Basically, otherwise I'd have turned out like loony. Really loony. Some people say I'm loony now.
You don't seem loony at all.
But it was like, it's taken years to just even get past a lot of that. And there's still, there's still scars that sit on you. So there's a lot of that I've had to overcome.
How did you not lose faith in the religion and being a part of Christianity?
So that came into play from the ministry friend the friend that I met he's become a good friend. So that was December of 2008. For the next 6 months, I struggled with that. But my current pastor, is my pastor at the time, the church we moved to in DeWitt, he knew a guy by the name of Jim Van Gelderen who had a youth ministry. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal ministry. It goes across the country and works in Christian schools for a week, and then they preach and teach in Christian school on stuff that teenagers need to hear about. Stop messing around. Stop, listen to your parents. Your parents know a lot more than you think they do. Stop being stupid and doing stupid stuff. And then we also do rallies on a couple of nights a week for, to reach out to the community. And so my pastor is really good friends with that man. So he's like, hey, David, I want you to do this. I want you to go on this trip. And he knew a little bit of what I had gone through. And he was hoping that would give me a way out, so to speak. And it did. I tell him it literally saved my life from just crashing and burning and all that. Because like you said, I was wondering, I had questions on a lot of things. I remember bawling in college in my dorm room, God, take this pain away. Give me an answer. Can you get these people to stop being stupid? And none of that really happened because people still have a choice and they can choose to be stupid. And so when I went on that trip, it really allowed me to inundate myself into hearing that God cares about me. God has a plan for me. And if I just trust him and follow through on that and do my part, he'll carry out his part. And he has sense. And it just kind of gave me, it was basically, I just was able to immerse in it. And I went on that trip thinking I was going to be a help to a bunch of other people across the country on that trip. And I think I was. I'd like to think I was. But it was bigger, looking back, it was bigger for me than it was for those other people. And
the impact of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so like I just I just had breakfast with him, that man, he was in the area. So I had breakfast with him, about a month ago. And I just reiterated, I'm like, listen, Brother Jim, you have no idea. Like I appreciate you because that saved my life. I would not be where I am today with the construct and without a lot of the same, not holes, but damage done. Like it was able to get me back on track with life, so to speak. And I was like, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. And he goes, yep, I remember. And I remember the conversation he's referring to, because the first day I got there to go on the trip, I was like, listen, I just want you to know where I'm at. This is where I'm struggling. He goes, I remember that. And from that time of the conversation in August of 2009 to, February or March, whenever we finished in 2010, said, I remember from that time to that time was a very different David, and in a great way. I knew you were struggling, but you responded really well, and I'm very proud of you. So
wow, I think it's important to tell people who have helped you along the way that what they did had a huge impact on your life.
1,000%, and even more so, I'd take it a step further and just say, tell people that you are around, that you appreciate them and care about them. Because I was, people hear a lot of the negative all the time. We as people are not afraid to share negative news about other people.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah,
matter of fact,
so
we thrive on that, right?
It's fun.
But rarely do we ever say to somebody, "Hey, I appreciate you," and just being a friend. I just want you to know I care about you, love you.
Yeah.
Any of that. And so, I think it's important just to even share positive things about people.
Yeah.
So I guess out of a lot of all of that, I've, gotten to a point where I'm at in my life where, like, kind of what we're referring to about, with the political conversation earlier, is like, I care less what you believe. I care more how you treat people.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we can have massive disagreements on things, but if you care about people and you're working to help people, then we can be on the same team for a bit.
Especially because you're not going to change people's opinions. You're not going to change people's political views. You might be able to change somebody's religious views, whether they believe in God or not, just based on like teaching them. But as far as like people having opinions about things, you're not going to change. So there's no sense of arguing and debating those things. You might as well just agree on the things that you can agree on and get along.
I actually find, so I'm the kind of guy that I'm not afraid to talk, and I'm not afraid to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
And I try to keep it non-emotional or less emotional so that, but I like to understand. And so I'll pick people's brains and ask questions. I'm the guy, when I go to conferences, after about a day or two, they just put the microphone at my table because I'm, they just know I'm the one asking I'm going to ask questions at some point. So I like to understand. And so I love to question people from a perspective of like, hey, I'm not trying to judge you. I just want to know what is it?
Well, that was the first thing you did as soon as you came in here. You're like, so why are you doing this?
Yeah, I just like to know, like what I like to learn about people and what's going on, and if there's a way I can be an encouragement, I'd be happy to do that.
So it's good to be curious, and I think that's a problem. People aren't curious. They may act like they're curious, but they're curious because they want to prove their point.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're asking you what your thoughts are on this. That way they can tell you their thoughts.
Yeah, and I think we need more of that. But you have to be able to not get emotionally attached to it. You have to be able to hear hard things or things that you disagree with. But I think there's an old Aristotle or Socrates quote. I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically the ultimate sign of intelligence is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it as fact. And I think we miss a lot of that in our society of, hey, okay, here's a thought. Would you at least consider it, whether it might be true? If there's some part of it true, what's true, what's not? And I think that's just missing just from general everyday life of, hey, it's not always black and white. Yeah. It's, you can share a meme and there might be some truth to that meme, but there might be some truth to a different side of it as well, right? And the two can coexist. Yeah. It's like, how do you find that balance?
Right.
Like that. So seek to understand, try to understand, be curious. Like you said, I think that's just something we should do more as a society.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't do that enough. And I think it's so easy to get into these echo chambers on social media when you see a meme that you agree with. Oh yeah, check this out. Yep. I do it all the time. I'm like, that's a funny meme, right? And then I share it or whatever, but it's so easy to do that. Now let's get back into your story a little bit. Where did the financial business come from? We kind of got away from that.
Yeah, we did. So all that comes into play. And so I was teaching, and I decided I didn't want to be teaching. Decided ministry wasn't the avenue I was going to go down full time. Although I still do a lot of the same ministries at our church. I just don't get paid for it.
Do you practice the same religion, Independent Fundamental Baptist?
No. But I still go to an Independent Fundamental Baptist church.
Okay.
But so that's a great question. So let's put it this way. I don't believe in religion. I believe in a relationship with God. I think religion is man's attempt to organize God.
That's the same as political views.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of truth in a lot of places. I don't think every place has a lockdown on the entire truth. But we go to the church we go to because our church loves us, and our pastor has done a lot of bent over backwards to demonstrate God's love toward us and rally the church around us many times when we needed it, and rallies the church around people as they need it, which is exactly what I think a church should do. Basically, we go to the church we go to because it's the type of church that I think a church should be.
Okay.
It just happens to be an Independent Fundamental Baptist church.
Yeah.
But it's not one of those that is up there banging on the pulpit, yelling at you, from the pulpit, telling you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And he really allows us to have the freedom to, to like, he's told me, listen, we may disagree on how to apply certain parts of scripture, but you're in charge of your house. I'm in charge of mine. And that's fine. You do your best to follow. My job is to direct you toward God, challenge you when you need to challenge it, but your job is to listen and follow God ultimately. So, when I was deciding what avenue to go down, then when I decided I wasn't going to go into teaching or ministry, what am I going to do? And I just came to the conclusion, I love working with people. I've always wanted to run a business, and finance has always intrigued me. So I was like, without knowing anything about finance, like, let's go do that.
You didn't study it in college or anything?
No, not even close. It was all my degrees in theology. So, wow. It was all Bible based, which is fine. But what I've really come to realize as a financial planner is that half of what I do is therapy or ministry in a way. It's making,
for you or others?
For my clients.
Oh, okay.
It's hey, am I going to have enough to retire? What do I need to do to be able to retire? Hey, the economy's really going crazy right now. Am I going to be okay? Or how do I set myself up to be okay? I had a conversation with a client last week, and she's like, when she walked into it, she had an page full of questions. And, it's like, all right, let's just go through them. Forget about what the return on your portfolios are. Forget about what kind of insurance coverages you have. Let's just talk about what you need to talk about. And so we did. We just went step by step. And I said, at the end of the conversation, when we were all said and done an hour later, I said, listen, how do you feel now about where you're at? And she goes, I actually feel really good. I need to talk to you more often. I said, yes, here's why you feel good, because this is the plan we have in place. These are the things that we've put in place, and here's why. And this is how it helps in these kind of situations. And she was like, yep, I just was getting concerned because my friend over here happened to hit it big on crypto, and my friend over here, is big into real estate, and I feel like I'm behind, and the economy's going crazy. What do I do? And I was like, listen, it doesn't matter anybody else. Just let's focus on you. What can you control? What are the resources you have, and how do we best position them for the life that you want? Turns out, she texted me the next day, that friend that was like, hit it big on crypto, then lost. Never talked about the loss. Like he hit it big in like December or whatever, and then lost a lot of it. And she's like, well, maybe I'm like, yep, that's the thing. Nobody loves to talk about their losses. So I said, at the end of the conversation, I'm like, listen, she's like, I feel like I'm in a therapist's office. I'm like, yeah. And did we accomplish what you came here to accomplish? She's like, yeah, I feel like I know what my future looks like. And like I'm on track, and I'm actually more on track than I thought I was. I'm like, yes, you are.
That's awesome. I know that my wife and I had a really bad experience at a tax place 2 years ago. We were getting our taxes done, and we didn't understand something. My wife was asking a question, and the guy tried breaking it down, but he wasn't breaking it down very well. And so she asked for him to re-explain it. And he said, do you want me to get some crayons and paper and draw it for you?
Oh, my word.
And, she obviously was like, she stood up for herself and, told him that, she didn't appreciate it, and that, she just wanted him to explain it a little bit better. And then he just kind of walked away, and everybody else in the office laughed. They thought it was funny. And, he later on apologized, but it was like, why would you talk to your clients that way?
Insane.
Yeah. Like when you're dealing with people's financial, business, they want to be assured that you know what you're doing and that you can explain it to them in a very simplified way. Very, very much so. And man, I feel like I want to apologize on behalf of that guy to you. We since then left. We never went back, but I can't believe that.
That I cannot fathom that. But it goes to the kind of a little bit of what we're talking about. People want just help. They want to know. They want help. They want education. They want to know what's going on. And they want to know that they're going to be okay. Yeah. And people care less about the return on their money than they do about, am I going to be okay? Right. So they want somebody who knows what they're doing and can explain it to them. Like if you were doing my taxes and I didn't understand something, I would expect you to be like, hey, this is what's going on. Like,
You don't need to draw a picture. But
so I bring a lot of my teacher's heart, my ministry heart to my business. So I think a lot of our clients feel that too.
Yeah.
In the sense of, we're going to do whatever we can to make you feel okay. That's our end goal. We want you to sleep peacefully at night and know that your vision is going to become a reality within reason. I can't make you a millionaire overnight or anything like that. I don't have that kind of thing. Like, I'm not the kind of guy that, portfolios matter, portfolio management matters, strategy matters, tax matters. But at the end of the day, none of that makes any difference unless they know everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so I bring a lot of explanation and teaching behind why I do why we're recommending certain things, and give that, just so people understand. And sometimes I go a little, I think I can over talk it.
Yeah.
So I've learned to ask, hey, I'm going to recommend this and give you a little bit of why. If you want to go deeper, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Because I can go deep all day.
Yeah. You'll just waste your time.
Right. Well, I just want that. I don't want to waste their time. If they're comfortable, like, hey, let's go, I don't want to go past that point.
Yeah.
But if they need more, I'm happy to give it to them.
What kind of things does your business focus on? Do you focus on taxes? Do you do everything?
So I don't focus on taxes. So I'm a financial planner, right? And I'm the vice president of business planning at my firm. So what that means is a lot of my clients are business owners, and there's a big need for business planning. And by that, I don't mean 401ks or, group benefits. Those are important, and we can do those, and we do work on those kind of things. But what I mean by that is I answer questions for business owners like, how am I going to take my business and turn it into my retirement income? How do I get out of my business successfully and get as much value out of it as possible? How do I hand it off to the next generation if we're doing that, or to key employees that are going to take it over? How do I do that without saddling them with as much overhead or debt as little debt as possible for them? How do I make sure that my key people remain loyal to me and don't want to leave and go work somewhere else? How do I reward them successfully in unique, creative ways that recognizes their contributions and status in the company? What's the value of my company? A lot of business owners either don't know or overestimate it a lot of times. So that's important to know. And that's often where we'll start is, okay, let's get an informal valuation done. We'll take care of that for you. Okay, here's how it fits into your, here's everything that we need to know. Here's how this fits into your picture. Here's what we need from it. And here's the kind of planning that we need to do to get from here to there. So that's part of it. Then I also do a lot of personal planning as well. A lot of business owner clients are both personal and business clients. And from there, again, all at the end of the day, it's how do we give you as much peace of mind as possible? Knowing that, so I take time to really understand people's vision. I'll spend an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, just sitting in a first conversation with people, just sitting down. Hey, let's go through, just asking them questions. What do you want out of life? What do you want life to look like? What does money mean to you? How do you plan on using money? What are the things you need money for in the future? What are the things that you want that we're going to have some sort of financial resources for? What do we do? If something happened to you, how do you want your family to be able to your family dynamic to look financially? Just ask them some of those fun questions of, hey, what they want in life. Sometimes a lot of times they've never been asked these questions. Many times not even thought of some of them. And it's just taking that time to get down and then come back. Okay, here's what you've done as progress toward that. Here's what we can use. And then come back and say, all right, so now that we know this, here's some things that we can change up a little bit or add to this or tweak this a little bit. And then we're going to walk you through implementing it and make sure that we're around for, if you want us to, for as long as you want us to be.
How did you learn all this?
Self-study over the last 10 years. So yeah, I dove in, started a business and had no clue what I was doing. So I spent my first 6.5, 7 years at Northwestern Mutual, which is a Fortune 100 company. And they did a really good job of making resources available to me to learn. Okay. And so my wife will tell you, I dropped her off at work because at the time we only had one car. So I would drop her off. She taught daycare, or taught at a preschool. So I'd drop her off at 7:15 in the morning, show up at the office at 7:30. I'd work. She'd take the Clinton County Transit home about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I would work till about 7, 8 at night, come home, eat dinner with her, and then I'd get to work again. I'd do some work from home, and then about 10 o'clock I'd shut it down, and then wake up, go to bed, or I'd spend about an hour just chilling. Wake up, or go to bed about 11. Wake up, do it all again the next day.
Wow.
And then a little bit on the weekends too. So, and then evenings is when I would spend some time studying, getting caught up. Okay, what do I do in these situations? And a lot of times it's more of a, here's a unique scenario with a client or a potential client. Okay, what do I need to do? What would I recommend? Here's what they need. So then I, pick people's brains, call up an advanced planning department, get ideas and then come back to them. So a little bit of it's a very much, and when you get in this world, it's very much learning on the job.
I could imagine. Are there other financial businesses in the area that kind of do the same thing you're doing? Or is this something that you've figured out works best for your clients and that you just practice it this way?
Everybody does some sort of something that I do, somebody else does, but it's very few advisors do it the way that I do it.
You seem like more passionate than what most financial places are like. You seem pretty passionate about people.
And that's at the end of the day, that's the greatest part of what I get to do. I get to be with people.
Because I think that's the most intimidating thing about dealing with finances with other businesses. When you go into a business and you take them your financial information,
mm-hmm.
you almost feel like you're less than in
mm-hmm.
a sense, and that they're kind of above you, and you feel awkward and it's not judged. Yeah. It's not comfortable.
I would not disagree with that. I haven't met with a lot of other financial advisors for those purposes for obvious reasons, because I run my own stuff. But I think there's a lot of truth in what you say in that a lot of advisors are more salesy than they are strategic. And there was a study done. I had a business coach, or I had a coach back about 7-8 years ago. She's a phenomenal lady. She was a life coach as well as a coach to advisors, and she kind of helped me get past some of the physical trauma from some of the stories earlier. She taught me something called the shakes, which I won't get into, but it's called trauma releasing exercises.
You shake yourself, right?
Yeah. Trauma. You've heard of trauma releasing exercises?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about it on the podcast once.
Yeah. I'm telling you, if you've ever gone through something traumatic, you need to go look that up. I'm not going to explain it now. But it's a phenomenal thing that helps your body heal and get past a lot of that kind of stuff. But she shared with me, she had me take a certain type of test called the Colby-A test, put out by I think it's by a lady by the name of Brene Brown. It tests your cognitive ability, or how best you take action. And she had done a study, or related to a study, that 90% of advisors essentially are kind of like quick start or salesy kind of guys. But I was not one of those. And so it kind of gave me hope, because in the early years of my career, and I just was struggling because I like to go deep, but in all the processes and all the incentivization are designed for people that move through people quickly. And I'm not one of those guys.
Right.
It hurts me when somebody doesn't want to work with me anymore. Like last week, I thought I messed up. On a client called me and said, "Hey, there's something going on here. Something's wrong with some money that we have, and I just want to know what's going on." And I looked, and I'm like, "Oh my word, did I mess this up?" And come to find out, it was something that had happened before I got there. And but I lost sleep over it last week. Like I didn't sleep one night because I'm like, did I mess this up? How bad? I'm a terrible human being. All those thoughts.
If you do mess something up, how do you fix that?
There's a lot of protocols in place that will prevent a lot of those kind of mistakes, accidental mistakes. We are so heavily regulated in my industry.
I could imagine.
Like everything has to go through a compliance team, and you have to fill out. We have to fill out reports. So if somebody wanted to move money from their IRA somewhere else to me, I have to fill out at least 2 different forms, both of which are basically saying the same thing. Why are we moving it? Why is it in their best interest? What are we moving it from and to? Why is that okay and in their best interest?
Wow.
And I have to submit all that paperwork and basically have to, prove to them that I'm doing this in their best interest, submit it all to them. If they don't like it, they can reject it. Wow. And so I submit it to them. Then they look through it and they say, okay, this is within the limits, or this is within reason. This is a good idea. We'll allow it to go through. And so then so I have to get a lot of things approved ahead of time.
So it's almost like a safety net in a sense to make sure that if you're
Correct.
not going to mess up somebody's financial information.
Correct. So
business too much.
Correct. So there's a lot of protocols in place to basically not allow me to be a Bernie Madoff.
Right.
So I don't like all the, because it creates a lot of extra work and paperwork for us. But at the end of the day, it's for the client, confidentiality and client confidence.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it from that perspective. It's good for the consumer. But we are very heavily regulated on that. So for me, when I was starting out trying to be, I was not good at moving through people quickly. So she said, she comes to me, she's like, hey, this is going to be very helpful to you. And she said, you're in the 8 or 9% of advisors that are very good at going deep with people. So what you really need to do is create your own systems and processes. Throw all that stuff that they're teaching you out the window and start over again.
Wow.
You best take action when you understand things very well, and then can go take action. You're going to be a slow mover, but you're going to be a powerful mover. And I found that to be very, very true. I was never top in my office for quantity. I've always been top in my office for quantity or quality. And so that's what I focus on with people, is like the kind of people that I work really well with are people that just want somebody to come alongside them, know what they're talking about, educate them, be available to them to help answer questions, to just help them make sure that life goes the way that they want it to.
Yeah. Do you have other employees?
So I share an assistant with a colleague in my office.
Okay.
Right now, that's where we're at. Hopefully, in the next few years, keep adding to that. We have a young firm. The guy that founded my firm is David Norris. He left the principal office. He was managing director over there for quite a number of years. And I was at Northwestern Mutual, and he had a vision for starting his own firm, basically allowing advisors to do what advisors do best, and that is work with clients the way they feel they need to be worked with. Mm-hmm. You get in these Fortune 100, Fortune 500 firms like Principal and Northwestern Mutual, Mass Mutual, some of these places. It's not that they're bad, but they all have a niche product that they're very good at, and that's what they really want you to push. For Northwestern Mutual, it's whole life insurance. Mass Mutual, similar, whole life insurance. Principal, it's 401ks or certain types of investment management. So they really incentivize around those kind of things. So if you feel like, hey, I need to engage my client this way, they're like, well, you can do that, but we really don't want you to. We want you to do it this way. So I ended up leaving Northwestern Mutual a little over 3 years ago. A large part of the reason was I wanted to engage my clients in a way that allowed me to take my time with them, be compensated for that time, but not necessarily be compensated for that time, but in a way that allowed me to come alongside them and put me on the same side of the table with them, rather than it feel like, hey, we're on the opposite side of the table arguing over whether or not this is a good idea. Right. And they were like, yeah, no, we'll let you do that, but here's all the requirements you have to hit in order for you to do that, and we really don't want you to do that. So to get into that program, I had to, get a couple of designations, have certain production quotas, and pay once I got into the program, I had to pay a massive fee every year just to be in the program. Wow. Right. Basically, they were saying, hey, we'll allow you to, but we really don't want you to. So I was like, well, I had some other local drama in our local office. That was just like, when Castle came along and wanted me to come over and kind of head up their business planning side of the firm, I was like, this is a good opportunity. I'm going to go join them. That was a little over 3 years ago. And then COVID hit, kind of delayed some of our plans. But our goal is basically to allow our advisors to engage the clients in the way the client needs to be engaged. And we got several advisors, and we all have a little bit different niche. And we all, engage people a little bit different way. And we're all supported in the way that we can engage them. So it's really a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love a business that is willing to kind of tailor the way they do things based on the customer or client. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, that's something that's lacking in today is these companies want to just have this one for all shoe size that fits everybody.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah. It doesn't fit everybody.
For a business model, when you're a large company, you kind of have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as an advisor, I should be able to come along and say, well, this company's good at this, but not this. So I'm going to go put the thing that they're not good at over here at this company that does it better. Right. And that's really what clients need.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to touch on? We've been going for over an hour.
Yeah. I'm happy. Ask me a question. I'll go as long as you need me.
You kind of can make up your own hours, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
do make up my own hours.
That's nice. That's the one thing. That's one reason why I want to start a business, because I want to be able to like just work whenever I want. Not work whenever I want, but like if I have something I need to go do, I can go do it and just work my schedule around it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I had a friend that went from working he's in the construction industry, but he worked for a company that was a supplier. And he was the GM, local GM for, one of he was the GM for their local supply office. And then he started a business or joined a guy that had already started a business a couple of years ago, and they're just going to expand it. And I'm like, that's great. The beauty of being a business owner is that it's not that you work less hours.
Yeah. You're working more.
You're working, or in his instance, it's probably about the same. You're either working more or the same, but the beauty of it is that you get to set what hours you want to work, or you can work, right? So tonight, my daughter has baseball practice. I'm a coach. I'm going to be there from 6 to 7, and I get to do that. And then I just whatever. If I would say it was during the day or whatever, I just postpone whatever I can work on until later tonight or something else.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of being a business owner. It's not that you work less. Yeah. It's just that you get to choose what hours you do work.
Do you find that it's harder to keep a workflow balance with life? Because like for me, this podcast is not a business, but I would eventually like it to be a business of some sort, You
and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But the thing is like for me, I'm always doing podcasts. Like whether I'm interviewing or I'm uploading an episode, typing up descriptions, I'm always thinking about how I can like make it better, constantly always working on it. But is that how your business is? When you go home, are you constantly wanting to work on it, make it better?
In the early years,
can you just leave it?
No, but I had to.
Yeah.
So, when I left Northwestern Mutual and came to Castle Financial 3 years ago, one of the beautiful things is that I was working less and getting the same amount of work done. It just was a natural cause of processes and systems. And so I really enjoyed that. And it gave me a chance to breathe again because I wasn't really getting a chance to breathe. Yeah. And so, but yes, now I'm able to, last few years, it's like, okay, how can I tweak this? What do I do better with that? How do I get in front of more people to help with, less time or commitment? So in my world, it is a kind of a cool thing because we also are governed a little bit by business hours or trading hours. Yeah. So most people, unlike real estate agents where people expect you to pick up on the weekends. Yeah. Nobody calls me on weekends.
That's nice.
Yeah. So it's really nice because then evenings and weekends, it's like, okay, during the day I get to work on the business or in the business. Evenings and weekends I work on the business. Yeah. And doing the things around it. But it's gotten to a point where it's a lot less than it used to have to be.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had that. That's one thing that kind of like, I wish I could start a business. I mean, this is obviously the insecurity of starting a business, right? Where you have to kind of leave the security of having a good job and then go start that business. Because I wish I could work my job and have that security and start the business, but it's like it's not possible. It's not possible to be successful.
As a financial guy, I'd tell people if you want to do that, start saving up 6-8 months worth of reserves before you go do it. And then it'll give you 6-8 months of runway to get your business off the ground. And people that have done that, it makes a world of a difference.
I could imagine.
So it gives you that. Because I will tell you, from a guy who started a business and had no idea how much I was going to make, or no idea as to how I was going to keep my wife at the time, just my wife and I, afloat financially. Not having money creates a lot of insecurity while you're trying to create security, and that just compounds on the negative effect of itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it scares you. But if you can have that security, it frees you up to just be able to just go do the business without the emotional backpack, so to speak, weighing on you of, hey, if you don't do this, then you're gonna get, you're gonna be a terrible human or a terrible husband or a terrible dad because your family can't eat or whatever.
Right.
But thankfully, God got us through a lot of tough times, and we're in a situation where now we're growing well, growing quickly, and growing the right way, and able to help more people.
That's beautiful. I think we should end the podcast with that.
Perfect.
You were a great guest. I wish I could talk to you longer because there's so many different things. We didn't even touch on some of this stuff.
I'm always happy to come back. I love talking.
Yeah, let's have you come back. I would love to talk more about your past and your growing up in the church and all that stuff, because I never had to deal with the abuse part of it, like the physical abuse, but definitely the emotional and mental abuse from it. So
yeah, we'll have to talk about that sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.